Thank you, Pam, and thanks for everyone for coming. Sorry for bending down for a minute. Let me just put the correct presentation on. It seems to have been shut, so let me go to the desktop. Sorry about this. Okay, very good. Once again, thank you, Pam, and thanks to everyone for coming. There's quite an incredible amount of people, in fact, standing room only, and I think we've got enough seats now for people at the back, so thank you again. From the outset, can I please acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land that we're meeting on today, and also acknowledge their elders past and present, and any elders that might be here from visiting communities. It's a real privilege to be with Beyond Blue today to talk about workplace mental health. I am relatively aware of the time, so I'm going to flick quickly through, and so you'll all be able to have these slides in PDF. If I'm going too fast, my apologies in advance, but you'll be able to get them. We're going to talk about three particular areas. We want to talk about mental health in very much a layman's level, so that we all understand what we're talking about when we're talking about mental health. We're going to talk about what it means to create a mentally healthy workplace, and then I think really importantly give you some valuable tools and resources to take back to your individual workplaces so that you can start to take action. When we talk about mental health, I think it's really important that we think about it from the perspective of exactly what it says, mental health. This is a World Health Organization definition, and if you have a look, it's around that idea of a contributing life in all aspects of our life. Not just work, not just play, across our lives. And I think if I can skip through to this whole idea of a mental health continuum, really important, I think, to understand that from the point of view of mental health, often when we're framing this discussion, we think mental health, mental ill health, and we go to the red end of the continuum, if you like, and we immediately think about helping people and supporting people with a mental health condition, which is critical and fantastic. But actually, we also need to acknowledge that this is about that whole continuum. It's about all the people that are active and contributing in their lives and are healthy. It's about those times when life, whether it be work or play, throws things up at us and we move into the amber. And what we need to understand is that is a normal, and a way that we need to think about mental health is to understand that it's not a point in time. It is a continuum, and we do go up and down that continuum. And what's really important is that understanding that in ourselves and others means that it's okay to tread into the amber. And the earlier we seek help, that we have conversations both in the workplace, with our friends, with our colleagues, and most importantly, seeking out the help of professionals, doctors, psychologists, evidence-based resources like that of Beyond Blue, SANE, Black Dog, and so many others, the more that and quicker that we can move back into the green and be fully functioning and thriving. So please understand that today when we're talking about mental health, even in the brief time that we are, we're talking about that full continuum. Supporting people with a mental health condition, but also ensuring we're keeping the healthy too. Really important that we get some context on why we're here. We're talking about workplace mental health today, and fundamentally important. But actually what we're dealing with is a societal issue. These statistics are, of themselves, really stark. 8 people take their own lives every day. Of those 8 that take their own lives, 30 attempt. This is a huge societal issue that we have. We think about those numbers, it's about 2.5 times the road toll. We also understand that 3 million Australians at any one time will be managing anxiety and/or depression. Now, there's no hard line between anxiety and depression and suicide. Please understand that suicide is a very complex issue. But we also understand that anxiety and depression is a risk factor, and that talking about anxiety and depression and our own understanding of it, and us as leaders' understanding of it, is a critical aspect of understanding and managing that risk in ourselves and in others. And let's bring that quickly down into a workplace context. There's been numerous studies, and again, we don't have time to go into detail today, PricewaterhouseCoopers, Instinct and Rees, and many others, around both the cost to business of workplace mental health and mental health conditions, and also that it is likely that 1 in 5 employees are likely to be managing a mental health condition at any given time. But what I think is really important to acknowledge about this slide is that actually, yes, there is a significant cost to business, and I think, if I can just touch briefly, it's not actually where you might think in terms of compensation claims. That's about 1.4% of the total cost. It actually sits more in absenteeism and presenteeism. But the point is, for those organisations that are investing in effective mental health and wellbeing programs, there's a substantive return, on average $2.30. Now, sometimes when I put a slide like this up, or when we put a slide like this up, people will say, why are you making the discussion around anxiety and depression and suicide about numbers, about return on investment? Because, well, today we're in a business environment, and we understand that often businesses don't take action unless they understand the business case. So there's definitely a return on investment, but I guess I should also point out that I don't speak to you as a clinician or a doctor or a psychologist today. I am actually someone with 25 years experience in the workplace. As a manager, as a leader, I was managing my own depression around about a decade ago. Point of this is that as a leader and as a manager, I don't know an organisation that doesn't actually have an interest in greater employee engagement, greater productivity, ensuring we're playing to people's strengths. And again, the research shows that investing in effective mental health and wellbeing programs can lead to greater employee engagement, greater productivity, greater job satisfaction. So if we think about that, absolutely societal issue, absolutely it's a business issue. And then if we bring this into play in terms, again, further research, it shows that at a very basic level, most organisations have physical health and safety high on the agenda. People think it's important, and indeed people within those organisations think that physical health and safety is being managed. Even more people will say that a mentally healthy workplace or a mentally safe workplace is important, but actually there's a greater disparity in those amount of people that believe their workplaces are mentally safe. And the disparity there shows us that yes, look, not all workplaces are perfect from a work health safety perspective and managing physical risk and injury, but we've got a long way to go in the context of understanding and applying that to mental health. And that's why it's so fantastic to see so many people here today invested in trying to understand how we take action in the workplace around that. Critical, and particularly in an environment with WorkSafe, and again I thank WorkSafe for putting an event on like this, and indeed Employer of Choice Awards more broadly. But this isn't an optional thing. Workplace health and safety, mental health and safety are legislative and regulatory requirements of all our businesses. What I'd say about this though is understanding that is critical. I think that's our baseline. Understand that if we're just doing it to tick the box, well, good and important because it's our responsibility, but I think we're missing an opportunity there to seek a more deeper relationship with our workplaces, at our individuals, with our teams, in terms of authentic relationships, in terms of that employee engagement and productivity that I was talking about, where we take a fully integrated approach to workplace mental health that I'll talk about shortly. So I'll quickly flick through that slide, but I hope you've seen by that societal issue, but really good for business, good for the individuals, good for society, and good for us as individuals. So what does it mean to create a mentally healthy workplace? Again, no one definition, but let's think about it in these ways and create this as we're thinking about how we apply it to our own organisations. It's about fostering that positive workplace culture. It's absolutely about having that permission to discuss mental health and wellbeing, managing those risks associated with the stresses of our ongoing jobs. I should point out that there's an element here that says that we're talking about workplace again, but actually the stresses and strains of life aren't limited to the workplace. And so really this is about making sure that we're in a position within our organisations to help people, whatever the stresses and strains are within their lives, and make sure that we're supporting people accordingly. And also there's a zero tolerance to discrimination and bullying. We know that has a direct effect on people's anxiety and depression, and it's something that we can pretty clearly take a strong line on in any organisation. I kind of like this definition though. I think that this one points us in a again, very general way, and again, there's no one definition, but I love the idea of this last part of this statement, which is having energy left over at the end of the day. I can see some nods there in the room because, essentially that's the one that says, look, it's not our collective roles as leaders, managers, as CEOs, as people in operational roles to actually drain the batteries and then go home to recover and then come back the next day and try it all again. If we can create that environment where we're playing to people's strengths, those kind of excitement that we get when we get a new job and actually we've got this job because actually this is what I'm good at, this is where I'm strong at, I understand my role, I'm clear on my role, then workplaces don't need to be the catalyst for stress and anxiety. They can actually be a really big and strong support for individuals and actually help build our strength collectively. Another way to think about it is that we know from organisations that are doing this well is that there's a number of critical success factors. And I hope this starts to show that actually some of this should you recognise as just being general business good practice. Leadership commitment. We must have leadership commitment around workplace mental health and wellbeing. It must be an ongoing program within our organisations. It's not a point in time. It's not something that we can actually just go, okay, we've got this, let's take these steps and mental health is fixed within our organisations. That's not how we approach physical health and safety. That's not how we approach most programs that we put in place within our organisations. It needs to become part of the DNA of the way we run our businesses. If it's a large organisation, clearly it's around governance and risk management. Fully shared responsibility across the organisation, whether it be the senior leadership group, the board, whether it be work health, safety, HR and other parts and functions within the organisation. Smaller organisations, absolutely, again, similar, but obviously in a more streamlined approach. But it does require that leadership commitment. It does require that employee participation. What I like about that part too, again, not rocket science, is it? But it does say that actually, given the prevalence of anxiety and depression and suicide within society, many of us, either directly or indirectly, have been touched by someone that is managing depression and or anxiety. And therefore, we understand it more than we might expect, or we're very passionate about it. And what we're trying to do in organisations is dial into that passion and make sure that we're giving organisations the skills and understanding, and people the skills and understanding to say, hey, let's bring that experience that you've had to the fore and help us develop an integrated approach. And again, that ongoing communication. Great that we have the anchor days like Are You OK Day, great organisation, World Mental Health Day, week, month, all the anchor days and months and weeks that are there. But this is about an ongoing dialogue throughout the course of any given week, any given day. I want to touch on this because I know there's a number of leaders in the room, and it's an important one because it touches that idea of this idea that it's not a point in time. What this research shows is that clearly employees and leaders have a disconnect. Many leaders think that employee mental health is good. We have we have practices in place, we have a policy in place, we have actioned this, and therefore it's done. Yet many employees don't believe that actually we have it in place. Now maybe that's because it was a point in time, we released a policy, job done. Or maybe it was because we had some training, job done. Maybe it's because organisational churn means that those people that did understand and do understand where the organisation's at have changed, and therefore now they don't. Regardless, what we need to understand is that from a leadership perspective, when we think that actually we've got this sorted, perhaps we don't. And are we actually embedding it into the way that we run our businesses? And are we having that ongoing communication? So please, in those leadership roles that people hold within organisations, whether that be formal or informal, take some of these steps and really help drive your organisations into effective action. And really important that you think about that understanding mental health, that you educate yourself and your teams around mental health. And again, I'll show you some tools and resources that help with that. Yes, it's fine for someone like me from Beyond Blue, or indeed, I didn't mention earlier because of the speed with which we were moving, but the Mental Healthy Workplace Alliance, who support something called the Heads Up Initiative, which are fantastic evidence-based resources for workplaces. Yes, it's perhaps easier for us to come up and stand and talk about it because we do it day in, day out. But actually, when you educate and understand a bit more, it's actually not that scary. Because it is life. We all go through ups and downs, and we can understand it. You'll hear some fantastic things from Claire and Nick from Wellway shortly that sort of almost parallel that continuum that I was talking about earlier. and also show us how we can support ourselves and others. But please, in whatever leadership or influencing role you have within the organisation, think about some of these steps, and again, I'm happy to provide these slides after the... I'm going to quickly jump into this. Again, when we're thinking about your strategy and plans, 4-step process, and again here we're not really talking about anything specific to mental health. Gaining that leadership commitment, doing a needs analysis, understanding where we're at, developing a plan, monitoring and reviewing, and let's do it again. All of that will help us develop an effective strategy. Now, again, I'm going to rush through this because of timing. But on the Heads Up website, which you'll see shortly, you'll see a whole range of tools that you can understand around how you can develop that and gain that leadership commitment. Put together a business case, whether it be around return on investment or employee engagement. Really drive and identify champions within your organisation. A whole range of things we can do around assessing the current situation. Really understanding where is it we're at. And actually here, even if you're an organisation that is just starting out, you'll find that there's data to start with, whether that be around churn, exit interviews, whether that be around your leave and understanding where people are taking leave and how people are taking sick leave, obtaining feedback directly, surveying your staff. There's a range of ways to say, hey, we're all just getting into this, how can we actually begin that? And for those that are on the path, it's about, I guess, evolving those measures. I want to spend a little bit of time here because in creating the plan, this is where we do start to talk a little bit more around, I guess, mental health specific actions, because again, hopefully you're seeing that most of this is kind of what you would do within an organisation in many of the plans you're putting forward. But I want to focus on the idea of an integrated approach to planning for mental health and wellbeing within your organisations. And this is adapted from the work of Tony Lamontagna and his team. And really what it's saying is around that whole idea of, hey, it is absolutely critical that we're supporting people with a mental health condition, and often the conversation has started and almost stopped there. So supporting people with mental health conditions is absolutely key. But also let's promote the positives of work, positives of good work, understanding what it is to play to people's strengths and understanding what it means to promote positive mental health. And also put in those protective factors, understanding our risks and what we're doing to mitigate those risks in our organisation. Really important that often people will say, just give us the answer. There's a wonderful how-to guide on the Heads Up website again. After this, you can probably get a link to it and certainly navigate to it. But it's a fantastic guide that takes you through these steps in quite a lot of detail. And it talks about understanding, that risk and what are we doing to put protective factors in place around mental health within our organisations. So an integrated approach is fantastic because it provides a more balanced view of what we're trying to achieve within an organisation around mental health and broader wellbeing. What I would also say is, please don't think you need to do all this at once. Again, easy for me to stand up here and go, hey, that's the way to do it. Here's a 56-page how-to guide now to do this fantastic plan. Actually, what I'd say is start small. Just understand that this provides framework and guidance, but just taking small steps is pretty critical because it allows you to actually take action rather than trying to build the perfect beast, taking months and months, if not years, to go, right, we're ready to fix mental health in our workplaces and whack, press the button, and guess what? It's not fixed. We need to do more, we need to adapt, we need to change, we need to grow. So as much as I'm providing this as a guidance, please think of it as a guidance only and take those small steps. Here are some other guidance too when we think about those three factors, things that we're talking about when we're talking about protection. Two things from, I guess, Beyond Blues learning. In applying this to our own organisation, and you'd hope that as an organisation like Beyond Blue, we're continually trying to improve. We're not the perfect organisation by any means. And what we've found is the critical nature of role clarity in an organisation that is constantly growing, that is changing, that is a charity that is trying to help all Australians achieve their best possible mental health. There's high demands, and we're always jumping to that we think we can help best. But we need to make sure that people are still playing to their strength, that people still understand their roles in it, that they're still aligned to strategy. All that is critical. And of course, adequate resources. I mean, again, easy to stand up here, but some of this is pretty hard stuff because it does get to the nub of business. Have we got the right resources in place? Have we got the adequate resources in place? If not, how are we changing? How are we adapting them? In terms of promoting mental health, again, it's really important to understand here the positives of good work. Really important also, I think, to understand that and educate ourselves and our people on the interrelationships between physical and mental health. Some really important things that we can drive out within our organisations and help to increase understanding so that we can collectively share the load of improved mental health within our organisation. Manager training development. Often we'll have something happening at executive and board level or at senior level, and then we've got passionate people here, but we don't have the training at the middle level to help roll it out, effectively roll it out. Great organisations like Mental Health First Aid Australia, with Mental Health First Aid Certificates, Black Dog, again, online training from Beyond Blue, which you'll see later. There's many options for people to start taking action and increasing their level of knowledge and training and development. And supporting people with a mental health condition as fundamental and critical, and often where the conversation historically has started and needs to place. Of course, we want to support people with a mental health condition. And what does it mean to make reasonable adjustments? And again, on the Heads Up website, you'll see things like templates to say, well, what is a return to work plan for someone with a mental health condition? How do we even start there? And so much of this, and I don't think I've got a lot of time left, but is around understanding that, please, you don't need to start from a blank sheet of paper. There are so many evidence-based resources, and wherever you are on your organisational maturity on this, then there are pieces of work for you to just take and adapt. After we've got that integrated approach, then it's about monitoring, reviewing, and feeling comfortable to continue to change it. I mean, no plan is static, and we need to acknowledge that with mental health and wellbeing as well. Now to, I think, some very quickly to dial into some of the resources available. Headsup.org.au, you saw the slide at the start. This is an initiative supported by something called the Mentally Healthy Workplace Alliance. It's a fantastic initiative in that it provides evidence-based resources for workplaces to take action. There's resources for small business, there's resources for large business, there's resources for employees, there's resources for managers, there's resources to help you put plans together like we're discussing today. But please understand that headsup.org is free and they're great resources to use. We've talked today about strategies for workplace health and wellbeing. Please understand that how-to guides available as a download and get by a hard copy as well. There are so many resources to enable you to start the planning, to guide that planning. There's policy templates. If you haven't got a policy, where do we start with the policy? Well, let's take a policy template. Now please, I'm not saying grab the policy, put your logo on, the job's done. Not quite that. It's about saying, hey, 80% of the work's done, here's the wording. Now voice it in your own organisation's words and gain the leadership support to actually enact it well, whatever size organisation you are. But please, you don't have to start from scratch. I think this is fundamental. For larger organisations, there's what's called SCORM compliant resources, which means you can take training modules and download them into your own learning management system free of charge and have them embedded within an organisation's learning management system so you can see how people are going in terms of taking that online training or not. If you don't have that, it's okay. You can still use it online, again, free of charge on the Beyond Blue website, Heads Up website. You just, without an element, won't be able to check it. That's okay, because people can still get that understanding, how to have a conversation, managing mental health risks at work, how do you approach someone you're concerned about. And these are just a couple of the examples there. Not all of them are SCORM compliant, but a couple are, and there'll be more to come. And so I guess if I can say, and I hope I'm to time, Pam, that in the context of workplace health and wellbeing, mental health and wellbeing, take these further tips as something to think about. I think it is important to start small. I've spoken very quickly, and again, my apologies for the speed. around sort of the depths and the breadth that we can go into when we're creating action plans. But actually, some of the good things you can do is just start small and grow. Also understand that aligning with broader workplace initiatives is really, really important. But is there one right way? No. Even Beyond Blue, sort of, when we started to think about it, treated it as a program in and of itself. You know, we created an action plan around mental health. But now we've embedded it into our broader work health and safety programs because we know that's what leading organisations are doing, and we know that that's where it sits well. And then, of course, that genuine and visible commitment from the top down. Because that's really important in this whole idea of saying that, yes, leadership is committed, but it also grants permission for us to have those discussions within an organisation. It grants permission for us to actually take steps to increase our understanding and awareness. And why is awareness so important? It doesn't matter what mental health programs we're looking at around depression and anxiety, we know that increasing awareness and combating stigma are two critical platforms, because that is what helps people both understand, then reach out for help from wherever it may, and then go to the professionals for help and make sure that they're moving from the amber to the green, rather than like someone like myself did, which is end up in the red at some point in time because you're not going to talk about it. You're going to keep your mask on. This isn't a work issue. I'm not going to take the mask off. So please understand you can there's a lot you can do, but you know, even just starting on small things is powerfully good. So I hope that's okay. Please go to headsup.org.au, investigate all the resources, use the resources. They're free resources, they're fantastic resources, and you'll also see resources from a whole range of organisations. Register if you like. You get a monthly newsletter. It doesn't, you're not going to spam you. You just get sort of the latest and greatest, if you like, from workplace mental health updated very regularly. So, Pam, again, thank you, and we might have some time for a few questions or not.
Yeah. I presume most people were in session early with Lisa this morning, and of course that was all about the mismatch between people's qualifications or skills, what they actually do in the workplace, and I couldn't help but hear your constantly about the that's you can see where we've built a whole structure that doesn't do that. So you can see why we're going to get these tensions continually happening. And so really, if we do try to match people better to what they can do, hopefully we can lessen the sort of mental health issues associated with that.
I think so. I think that there's absolutely an element there that says that and people that understand what their role is, that feel confident to be able to do that role and understand how that links back to the organisations and their own success are going to be in a stronger position. I'd also point out that, again, as I said, it's easy for me to stand up here, and I'm not saying that is easy though, because often, we'll get projects where, we just need someone over here and can just help with time and resource, please, and I think then it's just about understanding and managing that project risk, understanding that, hey, this has got a time limit on it, or this is why we need that, and understanding why someone might be stepping out of their comfort zone accordingly. But absolutely critical point, Dan. Do we have time for questions? Any questions? Yes. Yep. So it's a great question, and just very quickly, in case people aren't hearing it, it's essentially that you might have had a suicide in the workplace, or someone that in the workplace that has taken their own lives, and how we're looking after the people that are left behind, and how we're having or not having conversations in the workplace around that, particularly when leaders might kind of not want those conversations to be occurring. Again, because of time, very difficult to answer succinctly, but can I just make sure that, again, in terms of caring people that are left behind, and also the people that are managing in the aftermath, if you like, there are many, many resources, again, online on Beyond Blue and on the Heads Up podcast. I'd also say this is why it's important to actually put plans and processes in place in a proactive manner. Because what we're doing is saying, this isn't an issue for me, and I don't, we don't have this happening in our workplace, so I don't need to worry about it. Whereas actually what we're trying to do is bring our leadership groups to the point to say, hey, in the eventuality that this does occur, how are we going to manage it at the time? And that sort of proactive planning up front becomes the key, because that then enables us to go, right, this has occurred, engage this organisation, that organisation, here's the guidelines on how to have those conversations, whether in private or however it might be. But I think that the point of kind of sweeping it under the carpet, a bit like with depression and or anxiety, and not talking about it, is something that is actually more around putting your head in the sand, because we need to open up the dialogue so that people are coming forward, and even after something as awful as a suicide, that people need to and want to talk about it in their own way. And there might not be one answer, but what are the channels of support that we have in our workplace, at a private or even sort of a group level? If we haven't done that pre-work, then we're actually running to catch up. And I think that would be the message that I'd be saying. Use these tools and resources to enable us to do that pre-work as organisations, the planning, so that in the eventuality that something does occur, that we can actually respond in a caring and supportive way to everyone involved, whether directly or indirectly impacted.